Martin Luther was not fond of this letter. He called it a right strawy epistle, by which he meant an epistle that didn't contain what he considered to be the center of the gospel, namely salvation by grace through faith. And it is true that the Epistle of James does not affirm this foundational belief, but that doesn't make it bad. James adds some texture to the faith that I believe strengthens rather than weakens the gospel message. For example, it is James who famously says, "Show me your faith apart from your works, and I by my works will show you my faith." But it is on the subjects of testing and temptation that James turns his attention in the opening verses. These are the topics we take up today. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Monday, May 10th, 2021. James opens the letter by saying, "My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it nothing but joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing." Who among us hasn't gone through trials in life? Who among us hasn't experienced days and times when our faith was rocked by some event that caused us to do some real soul searching? I dare say nearly all of us have had those moments. Even the great ones of the faith bear witness to the times when their faith was tested and they wavered, only to have their faith renewed, stronger than ever. That's what James is getting at here. Times of trouble that test our faith are often precisely those times when, looking back, we can see that our faith was actually strengthened. Think of the body as a metaphor for faith. We never get stronger by sitting around doing nothing. We have to move our bodies. We have to exercise to get stronger. If you've ever spent a few days in the hospital unable to get up much, you know just how quickly we lose muscle tone. That's why so many of us end up going to rehab following a stay in the hospital. Our bodies need exercise in a safe and controlled environment so we can resume our lives as before. Faith is no different. It needs exercise as well. Now, after a few verses dealing with wisdom, poverty, and wealth, James returns to the topic of testing, only this time with regard to the specific test of temptation. Temptation is that all too human experience of wanting to say or do or possess something that we know deep down in our hearts we shouldn't say or do or possess. How tempting it is, for example, to put someone in his or her place with razor-sharp words. Be honest. We've all rehearsed some speeches in our heads that we would just love to have said to someone who needed to be brought down to size. Here's what James has to say about temptation in the life of faith. "Blessed is anyone who endures temptation. Such a one has stood the test and will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. No one, when tempted, should say, 'I am being tempted by God.' For God cannot be tempted by evil, and he himself tempts no one. But one is tempted by one's own desire, being lured and enticed by it. Then, when that desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and that sin, when it is fully grown, gives birth to death. Do not be deceived, my beloved." I dare say we have all faced temptations and even given in to those temptations. And I don't mean things like having a piece of chocolate or an extra slice of pie when we're supposed to be dieting. That's not really what he's talking about here. Those are trivial things. No, he's talking about giving up on the faith when the crowd goes another way, or succumbing to the temptation to exact revenge on someone. That's real temptation. But notice too what else he says about it. Whatever else we may say about temptation, we cannot say it is from God. Now, God may test our faith from time to time, but God is not the author of temptation. That's on us. To put the origin of temptation on God would be to deny our role in it. It would be the same as saying, it's not my fault I was tempted. No, temptation comes from within, from our own desires. And finally, James traces the link between temptation and sin. Sin is giving in to temptation. We all encounter temptations, but it is what we do with those temptations that matters. Do we entertain them in our imaginations? If so, we become ever more likely to act on them. Look, we can't always control what pops into our minds. We cannot always control our thoughts and desires. But with practice and discipline, we can learn more and more to tame those temptations and to put them aside. And it is in the struggle to master our temptations that our faith is strengthened. That's why James calls it a test that exercises our faith. Now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.